You're welcome back. Now, many of us are reeling from the announcement that came through on Friday that some licenses have been revoked by the Securities and Exchanges Commission. This obviously affected those who had invested in some of these organizations who now no longer are licensed to operate. So we need to understand the way forward, and we've got perhaps the best person to help us understand that. Let's say hello to Dr. Jacob Edu. He's the director and head of Issuers Department at the Securities and Exchanges Commission. Doc, how nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming.
Pleased to meet you too.
Right, there's a lot for us to get through, and I wish we had the whole morning, but we'll try and get straight to the important things. Okay. First of all, 53 organizations have had their licenses revoked, but as I understand it, a number of them were actually not operating. So in reality, about 32 organizations have been stopped from operating by the revocation of their licenses. Different reasons were given. My first question is, 32, or let's use the bigger number, 53, all at once.
Yes.
How come? I mean, were they all violating the regulations in tandem at the same time? Why are we having this mass revocation at the same time?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, what it means is this, that all the 53 had violated certain aspects of the rules that they ought to have complied with in doing their businesses. And for that matter, it was no longer reasonable for the Commission to continue to engage after having given them about 2 years to try to rectify these problems. So at that point, or at the point that we were on Friday, it was decided by the Commission that enough is enough. We should start cleaning up of the industry and see which of the managers, I mean, are ready to do business to protect our investors and also the general integrity of the market. Yes, so yeah.
I guess what I'm wondering, and this is why it's good you're here to educate us, because my lay mind. What I'm wondering is, if SEC is regulating all of these institutions, you would notice when they do the wrong thing, you would give them warnings, you'd give them opportunities, and then when they fail, you revoke their license. But the fact that it's all being done at the same time is what I'm wondering about. I granted that they've all done the wrong thing, as SEC says, but they didn't all do them at the same time. So how come we didn't see perhaps a few revocations earlier this year, then maybe, you understand, as and when each organization gets to the point where it has to be revoked? Why is it all done at once?
Yes. You see, we don't want to create uncertainty in the minds of the public, where you do a few this month, the next time you do, people will not know who next was going to go. So the decision was to identify those who cannot be rescued, and then the decision taken once and for all to actually help the public or the investors have some certainty, I mean, of mind as to who they can really deal with in the market. So that was why we
talk about those who cannot be rescued.
Yes.
Does that mean there were some who could be rescued?
Yes. Actually, the numbers are many. We had about 147 initially. About 6 voluntarily, I mean, surrendered their licenses without having any investors' monies. So out of the 141 left, 21 had become dormant due to the same problem of, I mean, not being able to meet investors' redemption claims. Then the 32 who are actually in business and also facing these challenges, I mean, had to adapt to the number. And so then the 53 becomes the number of licensees that we are getting rid of at this time to bring some integrity to the market.
Okay, so now let's look at what happens next.
Yes.
I mean, there are so many people watching us right now who don't have a clue what has happened to their money. So you tell us, where's their money now?
Yes. As at now, the monies are in the investments that the fund managers claim to have put those monies into.
Right.
What will be done going forward is that the SEC does not have the power to directly appoint a liquidator.
Okay.
So the Registrar General will now go to court to petition the court to appoint it as the liquidator. From then on, but we expect that to take place this week. From then on, a validation process will be rolled out where investors would go there with their receipts, their investment certificates to the liquidator and the people that they will be working with.
Right.
So those investments could be validated, and steps taken by the liquidator to retrieve, to trace, and to realize some of these assets, out of which some monies can be realized to pay investors whose monies are locked up. And even before then, government is also trying to give investors some initial relief, because this process might be long, since it's going to go through the court. I mean, it could be long. So government, in the meantime, will provide some relief to investors as we wait for the liquidator to realize the assets to the fullest extent possible and pay investors whose money is
Can you tell us a bit more about this relief from government? How will it work? How much will it be?
Well, we don't have figures to it yet, but government has agreed in principle to provide some relief to investors whose monies are locked up at the moment, pending payment by the liquidator to such investors. Right. It has been agreed in principle, but the amounts involved, we don't have the figures to tell.
Will
the
that
public.
process be managed by SEC?
No, it will be managed by the liquidator through the banks. Through some banks will be appointed where people can go submit their receipts and certificates for validation, and some monies paid to assuage some of their challenges in the meantime.
Okay. Now, earlier, I think this was perhaps in January.
Okay.
SEC announced that some companies were going on voluntary cessation.
Yes.
So they volunteered to give up their licenses.
Yeah.
I think you had HFC Capital, Atai Capital, Serengeti Capital, Indigo Investments, Verit Investments, and Waxon Waxon Investments. They all volunteered to hand over their licenses for a period of time.
No,
or just
permanently for now.
Very well. Now, when this announcement came out, we reached out to some of the organizations who have just had their licenses revoked. I spoke to somebody at Macaulay Capital who insisted that they also had requested that they hand in their license as even before January, but that their request was not granted. Are you able to shed some light on that?
Well, these ones that you just mentioned, they are fund managers who don't have investors' money with them.
Right.
Yes. So if you want to, surrender your license, it's so easy to do. But I don't think Mark Otley is one of these.
Right.
But these are decisions taken by they themselves voluntarily. And where you have clients' monies with you, we just don't accept it that we just go. We make sure you settle clients before we allow you to go. So I don't have the footages of the Mark Otley case, but the principle is that before you are allowed to go, we make sure you don't hold on to, or you will not be holding on to investors' funds.
But you haven't done that with these 53 that you've cancelled. They still have funds, but you've revoked their licenses.
Yes, those are not voluntary. The ones you mentioned earlier were decisions taken by the family themselves voluntarily, yes. But these ones, we are forcing them out.
But I guess that's my point. If somebody wants to volunteer to give you back their license, you say, I won't take it because you have people's money. But then you can come and take it.
We will accept it when you have paid off investment funds.
Right.
You see. But Mark Otley has had or has been having problems And you can't be holding on to people's funds and say, I'm going away.
Right.
No. Even this 53, what it means is that they no more hold a license to operate, but they are companies.
Right.
That is why the RG is not going to liquidate them before they come to ask for a license. You're already a company, but they only come for a license to do the business that we regulate. Yes, and so if it happens like that, fine, license has been revoked, but your company still exists.
Yeah.
So now the liquidator who will be appointed soon, clothed with the power of the state, will then be able to ask you, demand accountability for the monies that you were handling on behalf of investors.
Am I right in saying that these companies, these 53 companies, well, let's put aside those that were not functioning.
Fine, 53,
so the 32, the 32 that have now been stopped from operating. Am I right to say that they all started having difficulties, or let me put it, the earliest difficulties were detected in 2017, is that right?
Yeah.
So what is it? What happened in 2017 that suddenly made it a challenge for these organizations to meet their obligations? What happened?
Well, it is difficult at this point to actually say what exactly went wrong. But the major problem that is common to almost all of them was the issue of guaranteed returns. By that, we mean if an investor takes his or her money to a fund manager wanting to invest that kind of money. The fund manager is an intermediary. So the fund manager is expected to advise this investor where the monies can be put to. Of course, after you have had a conversation with the investor, asking him or her his objective for the investment, how long he would want to invest. And you, being the professional, would now tell the investor, these are the instruments, these are the investment products through which you can invest. The fund manager is supposed to lead you into this, collect their commission for the services that they've done for you, get some statements for you from even where the investments are being made. This is the normal fund management that we expected our people to be doing. But what some of them were doing was that instead of doing what I just explained, they would take the money as if they are the one going to use the money. And then promise you maybe 25%. They would then go and look for 30 or 35. Then when the amount, the investment is due, they would then take the difference, what we call the spread, keep it and pay you what they have promised to pay you. And what we are saying is that you are not a bank. You are not a savings and loans, you are not a microfinance and an universal bank. You are not also working with the money yourself. So how do you guarantee an investor that I'll give you this and I'll give you that? This is what they had done 2017 onward. We said, no, this kind of practice is wrong. Please unwind those investments and put them into appropriate investment instruments through appropriate practices. You've engaged several of the management of these companies. You've engaged several of the board members of these fund management companies, and we are not seeing much progress. Issuing penalties against them will not actually bite them much. You see, we suspended some of them. It's not achieving results because they are still sitting on those monies that, in the first place, they shouldn't have gone that way.
Right.
Yes.
So in essence, until 2017, these funds were doing the wrong thing and surviving. Yes. Then in 2017, SEC said, stop doing the wrong thing, do the right thing, and they started to fail.
Yes, some of them.
Wow.
Some of them.
So what was the analysis at that point when the problems began? What were the decisions made around the table at SEC as the referee when you realized that now, as a result of your more vigilant scrutiny, these funds are failing and innocent, I'm using the word innocent, innocent depositors' funds are likely to evaporate into thin air. What strategy did you put in place at that point?
Okay. even slightly before 2017, late 2016, the previous Director General, Dr. Ananenchi, had to engage with the market, with their market association. I mean, they met several times at the SEC, explaining this problem to them, even though there were some pushbacks. But he insisted that this is not the way to go. And if you don't deal with it, it will one day burst in our faces. He retired, and Reverend Daniel Ogbami Tete, yes, when he came, he did not also, rest on that matter. We invited the whole of the market. We went to La Pleasure Beach Hotel, had an engagement with them that this problem cannot continue. Going forward, all those investors that you have whose monies are below a certain amount, please push them into collective investment schemes. We shall come there as time goes on. We will only allow you to do, manage funds, like you come to me and manage your money for you. We will show that one to a certain level of, net worth, maybe 100,000 or more. Then we can go into proper management agreement with investors who will be deemed to understand the investment processes. And then you manage on their behalf. So we have been meeting them, and he even gave them time. In June 2018, a letter was sent out to them that we are giving you about 6 months. Please unwind. If for any reason the 6 months was not enough for you, come to us and let's see how we can go through the process with you. 6 months, elapsed. That was December 2018. A few who came got a few extensions to continue. Others did not really bother much. And so
Gold Coast Securities, was it one of them that engaged?
Yes, Gold Coast. In fact, Gold Coast is one of the entities that the SEC, has engaged longest. Gold Coast have been allowed to submit proposals here and there. But in all those things that they did, they were not meeting our requirements. You ask them to go bring this, sometimes they don't turn up. But you are not to talk about Gold Coast as a firm now. They wanted to put up what they call the Cardinal Trust Fund or Cardinal Master Trust Fund or something that they were going to migrate these investors whose monies are locked up in guaranteed returns onto. You can't just move people into another scheme when you don't have the approval of the regulator. So we asked you to come and submit a formal proposal to the SEC. After a while, they created that complaint. They submitted something to us. We said, this thing that we have submitted is not enough. Please go back, redo it, and come back. As we sit here, they have not come back. All that we hear is they are in the news, claim to be migrating people onto a scheme or a product that the SEC has not approved. So we have actually allowed them all the time. But unfortunately, they prefer to do what they wanted to do.
Why did the SEC not inform the public that the scheme that Gold Coast is moving them onto is not approved?
Oh, there was a statement to that effect. The public was told.
Okay.
Yes, okay. It was told. It was told. And I remember when the public was made aware of this, they came back saying, why do we want to, like always, the regulator is always accused of destroying somebody's business. But that is not, there must be a balance between you creating wealth for yourself and also protecting other people's money. There must be a balance. So we cannot be sitting down looking on for you to do what you like when we don't think it is safe for investors. So that is the case for...
Okay, so now, if I'm a customer,
yes.
We've started talking about Gold Coast, so let's keep using that example. So I'm a customer of Gold Coast Securities, yes. And now I hear this announcement. Gold Coast Securities license has been revoked. Now, for many months, I've been trying to get my money from Gold Coast. I haven't been able to get it. Maybe I get dribs and drabs here and there, but I have the bulk of my money is still locked up there. And now I'm hearing that they no longer have a license to operate.
Yes.
they are going to be liquidated,
Yes.
and then I will have to get in line like any other what's the word? Investor to get my money back. In the meantime, government might give me something, but I don't know how much, and I don't know when that money will come. So tell me, as a Gold Coast investor, if, you know, am I better off now after this action you have taken, or am I worse off?
Yes. You may not be worse off because at least now there is some sort of an end in sight. You see, people have been going to Gold Coast for over a year. People have demonstrated at the Gold Coast premises. They've come to SEC itself to demonstrate. There have been several engagements with investors who are really worried for no cause of theirs. You see, so a liquidator will be appointed. Because SEC does not have the power to appoint a liquidator as it was in the case of Bank of Ghana. So we are going to court today to have the Registrar General appointed a liquidator for the 53 companies that are to be liquidated. When that power of the court is obtained by the Registrar General's Department, Registrar General, then an announcement will be made as to the period and where people can submit their receipts, their certificates for validation. The Registrar General also, with the assistance of other professionals that it might engage, will start tracing assets and actually getting some of the investments that these people have made. But some of the investments are in, government bonds, some are in listed companies. In fact, it is not, everything. That is, at least half will be good investments. So at least half is in good investment. But also it depends upon where that company that you invested with, invested the money. If that investor did not put the monies into safe investments such as government bonds, tables, listed companies, and that, then you may be at a greater risk than the investor whose family they put the money in those other. So when the power to liquidate was granted RG, and that's what we made, validation process will start. But as I said, before then, it is not that government will, because the commission has been assured that some relief will be given, and that will be sooner than even the Registrar General will do its validation process. Okay. But what we don't know is how much government wants to help.
And will this relief be to every investor?
Yes, okay. It will be to every investor, right. I think. Every investor.
Now, I guess this leads to the next question of if it depends on where your money was invested, how easy it will be for you to recover your funds. How do customers find out where their money was invested so that they know their fate?
Yes. So it will not be the investors who will have to find out. The liquidator will have some accountants working with them. So it will be the duty of these accountants to go through the books, the records of the fund managers, to trace. Also with the banks as well. It will be a holistic exercise. Definitely, the assets will be traced. In fact, even though we have taken out the license of these people, they are mandated to assist the regulator to unravel, wherever the monies have been placed.
But this is interesting. So if, for example, I've invested with Gold Coast or Macaulay or any of the ones that are now no longer able to operate, I've invested with them 50,000 cedis. And they, in turn, did some investment with treasury bills, but then did others with not so safe investments. How will you trace my 50,000 cedis to determine whether it was part of the treasury bills one or the other one?
No, that is not what is going to be done. See, if they had done the real family business, then actually they would have linked you to where your money was. Was, and so they wouldn't even be the problem. You know where your money is, and so you can still continue the relationship with where your money was invested. But here is the case: monies were put together and invested, and so it will be difficult to trace individually where monies of individual have been placed.
So how will you prioritize who gets paid first and so forth?
Well, it will. I'm not the liquidator. I'm not the accountant.
Naturally,
but normally, it will be prorated. If we get 100 and we have 200, then prorating will mean that somebody will get certain proportions of their monies.
Okay.
So anytime monies come in, an arrangement will be made by the accountants, the agents of the liquidator, to see how best everybody can be met in a way.
All right.
In a way.
Now, something else that is happening at the moment that I need to ask about SEC's involvement. I've noticed that Men's Gold has started to announce to its customers that they can come and validate their claims for repayment. And they've set up certain vantage points for that to happen. Is SEC involved in that in any way? Is SEC overseeing that, since you are the ones that inform them to stop that particular product?
No, SEC is not involved in Men's Gold validation process. Because Men's Gold, in the first place, was not a licensee of the SEC. What we saw was that it was trying to derail into certain aspects of business that is SEC regulated, and so we asked him to formalize or get out of that area, and that was where the whole program started. And Men's Gold never came back to SEC. What it did was to go to court to question the authority of SEC to get into his business. And so Men's Gold matter is a state matter.
Right.
It's not SEC matter, and so we are not involved with Men's Gold.
That is interesting, though, because it took us a process to get to the point where SEC stepped in and said, stop offering this product. Am I right in saying that that was not the first, shall I say, ruling or decision of SEC? First, when you had a first look at Men's Gold, you actually determined that what they are doing does not fall under SEC regulation. Then later you came back and had another look and said, oh, they do fall under. So, and then you stopped them. So what is it that you missed the first time?
Well, I may not be able to recollect exactly the first decision that you pointed out.
That was in 2017.
Yes. But you see, Men's Gold, had a license, from Minerals Commission to buy and export gold or so. And so that was the business that it claimed to be doing. But we saw, the area that we saw was where, the general public are invited to come and deposit some money with them, and over the period they will get some returns, which appeared to be a derivative or an investment product, which then becomes their product a security. And for that matter, we said, if this is the way you want to go, then you will need a license of the SEC. But of course, they challenged that they ought not to be, or they don't have to be regulated by the SEC, and so they went the way they went. But with them, for Men's Gold, initially, you had asked them to submit, information which even up to now we don't even have. And in such matters, you need comprehensive data information to be able to take an absolute decision. And so at the point that, even though they have not submitted information and we haven't done some mystery shopping and other activities, then we determined, clearly that what they are doing is something that cannot be done without a license. And
that before then, you had written to the Bank of Ghana in 2017, telling them that what Men's Gold is doing does not fall under derivatives, or that does not fall under the supervision of SEC. So that is a completely opposite decision to the one you finally made. And I guess that's where I'm curious. I'm wondering, what did you see that made you decide that actually they don't fall under?
Well, that is what I cannot tell exactly because of time lapse, and also probably I might not be directly involved with that decision. But you know, Men's Gold, I mean, had been followed by Bank of Ghana, or was followed by Bank of Ghana for a long time. I mean, changing their names from bank to bank, and in many other ways, trying to claim that the path that it was treading neither belonged to Bank of Ghana nor SEC. Yes, but at a point we were certain that certain aspects, I mean, had to be answered by SEC, and that was where we came in. And based on the information available to us at the time, that was a definite decision that SEC took. Sorry, I cannot actually have information to
That's okay. Now, for customers of these companies whose licenses have been revoked, the 32, you know, these companies have been operating for a while. You've explained that in 2017 there was a certain stricter, if you like, stricter supervision. So, for all the period that they were operating before then, when they were guaranteeing returns and you know, investing in instruments that they were not licensed to invest in and so forth. For all that period, where was SEC?
Where was SEC? That is the question. SEC was around, but you see, it was rife, but some were able to actually, I mean, revert to the normal way of doing fund management business. That is why some of them were not affected by the decision that we took. And unfortunately, SEC is like a referee on the field. You only see an infraction when an act has been done. You see, so to be difficult to determine beforehand that this act will be done. And in fact, if the person has not committed the infraction, you can't do anything. And so when we detected that these guys, this is what they are doing, then we said, hey, let's move away from this. This is not the way to go.
So SEC did not actually know?
Yes.
That is what's going on?
No, you will know. You will know from records. You will know from the records that we obtain. You will know from the inspections that we conduct. But what I'm saying is that you will know only when the act has taken place.
In this case, the act is that they were guaranteeing returns.
Yes.
And they were doing this publicly, telling their customers that we can guarantee you this percentage.
Exactly.
You're saying SEC didn't know this was happening?
No. I didn't say SEC did not know. SEC got to know, you see, through our inspections, through our audits, that this is what was happening. And that was why we said, hey, this is not the way to go. So stop. But what I said is that you would, I mean, it's not something that you can preempt. We can only preempt an act that is being contemplated. Right. But in this case, before you determine that an infraction has been committed, then the act has already been done.
Okay, I want us to put this in perspective now. Let's see how this has affected customers of these institutions. Nancy Emefa-Adjei has been to some of the affected institutions. She joins us now with details from the Gold Coast Management Fund. They have an office at airport, and Nancy is there. Nancy, so tell us, this morning, after the revocation of license, what is it looking like at Gold Coast Management Fund? Right. I understand we have a bit of a technical difficulty there. We will see if we can reconnect with her. But just final words from you at this point. What's the way forward? What should customers know as we wrap up this conversation?
Yes. A liquidator will be appointed who will also engage some agents who will help to validate the investment claims of investors. Thereafter, the liquidator will seek to trace and retrieve some of these assets. The proceeds from this exercise will then be used to pay investors. But before then, government has actually promised that some relief will be granted to investors even before the liquidator starts its work.
All right.
And that is what we expect to happen. So I know investors have actually struggled for a long time, and I'm sure they'll be prepared to hold on, to exercise some restraints and patience. In fact, this is a pleading, because we all know, I mean, having worked for a long time, having tried to, I mean, gather some savings for your future, and somebody just, I mean, bastardizes your money like that, is actually painful. We sympathize with them. But going forward, the SEC is going to be stricter. The SEC will find resources to improve its capacity. And we hope, and we hope that the market will be better and must be better than what it is now.
All right, Doc, thank you so much for
All right.
spending time with us this morning.
Okay.
We appreciate the education.